You know that moment. You're at a party, a work event, maybe just running into someone at the grocery store. Someone you've absolutely met before. You can picture where you met them. You remember what they were wearing. You even remember laughing at a joke they told. And then they smile at you and say, "Hey," and your brain just goes completely blank on their name. Like, not even close. Not a syllable, nothing. And the panic that follows? Oh, that's its own special kind of chaos. Do you say something? Do you just smile and hope they don't ask you to introduce them to anyone? Do you subtly check if they're wearing a name tag? Meanwhile, your brain is back there, somewhere in the filing room, frantically throwing papers everywhere, trying to find this one piece of information, while you stand there nodding like everything is totally fine. If this is you, first of all, you are not alone, not even a little. And second, and this is the part most people don't realize, this isn't a flaw in your character. It's not rudeness. It's not that you don't care. There's actually a fascinating psychological reason why some people forget names so easily, and understanding it might just change the way you see yourself entirely. Let's start with something that might surprise you. Your brain doesn't treat all information equally. When you meet someone for the first time, your brain is doing a huge amount of work all at once. It's reading their face, their body language, their tone of voice, picking up on the social context, figuring out whether they're safe, interesting, funny, threatening. It's essentially running a full background scan on a new person in real time. And in the middle of all of that, someone says their name, once, for maybe 2 seconds, and your brain, already overwhelmed with everything else it's processing, kind of files it loosely. Think of it like this. Imagine you're trying to catch 100 things being thrown at you at the same time. Someone throws you a name, but they also throw you a smile, a handshake, a joke, the sound of the music in the background, the awkwardness of the introduction, and what you're going to say next. The name is just one of 100 things in the air. It's no wonder it hits the floor. There's actually a psychological concept that captures this perfectly. It's called the next in line effect, first studied by a researcher named Brenner back in the 1970s. When people are in a group and they know it's almost their turn to speak, they become so focused on what they're about to say that they completely miss what the person right before them said. So even in a simple round of introductions, by the time it's your turn, you might not have processed a single name that came before yours. Because your brain was busy. It was rehearsing. It was anxious. It was doing what brains do. And speaking of anxiety, here's something that doesn't get talked about enough. People who struggle most with remembering names are often the people who care most about social interactions. That sounds counterintuitive, right? But follow me here. If you're someone who gets a little nervous meeting new people, or someone who really wants to make a good impression, your attentional resources in those first few moments are dominated by self-monitoring. You're thinking about your handshake. You're thinking about your smile. You're wondering if you seem confident or weird or too eager. And while all of that internal commentary is running, the name goes in one ear and doesn't quite make it to long-term storage. So the people who forget names the most are often the most emotionally aware, the most socially conscious, the people who actually care the most about connection. There's something kind of beautiful about that, isn't there? But there's more to it. Names are, from a purely cognitive standpoint, genuinely harder to remember than almost any other type of information. And here's why. A name like Michael or Sarah carries almost no intrinsic meaning on its own. It doesn't describe anything. It doesn't connect to a story or an image or a feeling in the way that other facts do. If someone tells you they're a firefighter, your brain immediately lights up with images, associations, context. It hooks onto something. But Michael? That's just a sound, a label. And our brains are notoriously bad at holding on to arbitrary labels without repetition or context to anchor them. Psychologists call this the Baker-Baker paradox, and it's one of my favorite little brain quirks. In studies, people who were told that a man in a photo was a baker remembered that detail far better than people who were told the exact same man's last name was Baker. Same word, completely different retention. Because baker as a job conjures up images: bread, flour, an apron, warmth. Baker as a name is just a noise attached to a face. Your brain doesn't know what to do with it. And our brains are association machines. We remember things by connecting them to other things. The more hooks a piece of information has, the more vivid, emotional, or meaningful it is, the stickier it becomes. Names, in their raw form, just don't have many hooks. That's not a personality defect, that's just neuroscience. Now, here's where it gets really interesting. Some research suggests that people with highly creative or imaginative minds actually forget names more often. Not because they're less intelligent, but because their minds are constantly making associations, building narratives, drifting into tangents. While someone is introducing themselves, the creative brain might already be 3 connections deep, thinking about something that person's voice reminded them of. The name, again, gets lost in the current. And then there's the simple reality of modern life. We meet more people than any generation before us. In person, online, at work, at events, in comment sections. The sheer volume of names our brains are asked to hold is genuinely unprecedented. Your grandfather might have known a few hundred people in his lifetime. You might encounter that many in a single week. The brain was not designed for this. It was designed for tribes, for villages, for a world where you saw the same faces over and over until they became as familiar as your own hands. So what can you actually do about it? Because I know some of you are watching this and thinking, okay, great, I understand why, but I still freeze up every single time. And the good news is, understanding the mechanism is genuinely the first step. When you stop blaming yourself for it, you free up the exact mental space that was previously occupied by self-criticism. And that space can actually be used for, well, remembering. Beyond that, the simplest trick in the world is repetition in the moment. When someone tells you their name, use it. Not in a weird, robotic way, just naturally. Oh, that's interesting, Jamie. Wait, so how did that start, Marcus? Every time you say the name out loud, you're carving a slightly deeper groove. You're giving your brain one more pass at a piece of information it might otherwise let slip. You can also try to attach the name to something: an image, a rhyme, a person you already know with that name. The stranger it is, the better it works. Your brain is far more likely to hold on to something absurd than something neutral. But honestly, more than any technique, I think the biggest shift is simply giving yourself permission to be human. To say, I'm sorry, I've forgotten your name, without the shame spiral that usually follows. Most people, when you're honest and warm about it, don't mind at all. What they remember is how you made them feel, not whether you nailed their name on the second meeting. Because here's the thing about memory and names and connection. None of it is really about the label. It's about the presence. It's about whether you were actually there, whether you were genuinely curious, whether the conversation meant something. And people who forget names, in my experience, they're often the ones who were so busy being present in the feeling of the conversation that they let the logistics slip. So if this is you, if you've spent years quietly embarrassed by this little quirk, I want you to hear this clearly. Your brain is not broken. It's busy. It's associating and imagining and feeling. And that's not something to fix. That's something to understand. If this gave you even one, oh, that's why moment today, drop it in the comments. I genuinely love reading those. And if you want more of this kind of deep dive into the quiet, strange, beautiful ways our minds work, well, you know where to find me.